Hello and welcome to another episode of the Adrienne Ross Show, the basketball edition. I've been sharing with you all some tidbits of an interview Jan Jensen, who is now the head coach of the Iowa women's basketball team and was the assistant coach to Lisa Bluder for many years. And of course, together they coached Caitlin Clark. The interview is fire. And some of you feel the same way. I can tell from the comments, and people feel like they're learning more about not just coaching, although there's a whole lot in there that people should take and grab and chew on about coaching. But also people are getting a look into Caitlin Clark because Jan Jensen allows us to see how Caitlin Clark ticks and what it was like to coach her, the good and the challenging. I'll put it that way. Today, I want to talk about Jan Jensen focusing in on how to deal with a fiery Caitlin Clark. Many of us have watched her first WNBA season or watched her during college, and fiery, yeah, that's a good adjective. And sometimes we see that toward officials, and sometimes we just see that during the regular play. Yeah, as much as she is humble off the court, as much as she gives an amazing interview, as much as she appears to be someone you kind of like to be around, people who are fierce competitors, and that includes Caitlin Clark, can be a handful to deal with. And so Jan Jensen takes us into their approach as a coaching staff to a player like Caitlin Clark. And it just triggered something in my mind because I can think of a specific player. Actually, I had a few, but I can think of a specific player who came to mind who was a great athlete, a good basketball player, but a great athlete. She went to college and played softball. She could have gone to college, I believe, and played volleyball. She just was a great athlete, but boy, was she difficult to deal with. And I love her to this day. And I worked with her mom. My mom worked in the office of the school where I taught. And her mom was constantly apologizing. Oh, we're trying so hard. But she was just a fireball, right? And like I said, a great athlete and a decent basketball player. But you got to kind of figure out, okay, how are we going to handle this player who's got all that oomph? Well, we're going to see and talk a little bit about what Jan Jensen said they did with Caitlin Clark, because someone of her talent and also of the fire as a coach, if you're just a strict disciplinarian, and I'm disciplinarian as a teacher, as a coach, real fun, real hands-on, but I like things a certain way. How do you deal with a player with the fire of Caitlin Clark, who can absolutely blow the whole joint up? Let's take a look at what Jan Jensen said in this interview about the strategic approach to Caitlin Clark.
So, getting her was just such a, a blessing. She could have gone a lot of different ways. So you have a lot in the tank with her, right? And we just always had a great rapport, as did Lisa, but, I did a lot of the lead recruiting.
Sure.
And, she always kind of had, that little attitude at times, and especially in high school, that could be hard to manage or really support sometimes because you weren't used to it. But I'd watched her so long that I could get the fact that, I would say she was in her 4th year of French and everybody was still just trying to master English, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe They were saying we, right? So she was always playing at this level where the others couldn't get to. A, they weren't skilled enough because she was so great. B, they didn't love it like she did.
Right.
So she had all that going on. Plus, she needed to be refined, right? And her high school coach did a great job. Kristen Meyer's her name. Her family's awesome. And I told Lisa, I said, if we get her, I said, I just feel like we got one job, and that's to tame her, but never break her.
Right.
Because you don't want to break that spirit of, that kind of, it reminds you of kind of like a horse where they will flare up sometimes,
Sure.
And, Lisa said too, you never want to say whoa to a racehorse.
Right.
So that was kind of our mantra. And then when she got here, it didn't come without its moments, right? And she'll tell you that too. You had to have some knockdown dragouts of like, no, that's not acceptable. Sometimes as a coach, we had to kind of look the other way where, the rest of the players are like, what? But it's like parenting. If you have some, kids, sometimes you don't always treat this one the same way you treat that one. So
yeah.
The process,
so talk about that. Do you need to be a bit of a...
I absolutely can relate to what they're saying. No, I never coached a Caitlin Clark type talent, but I totally can relate as a teacher and as a coach, and many of you as parents probably can relate. You don't deal with everyone the same way. Notice what she said, that there were players who were like, she getting away with that. And it's a part of relationships. It's a part of recognizing this player is special. And she talks about that in the rest of this interview. Again, I'll put the link in the description of the video because you really should watch the whole thing. But this player is special. And so you're going to have to deal with her a little bit differently. But this is what I thought was so powerful. If we get her, talking about recruiting her when she was a high schooler, of course, if we get her, what we want to do is tame her, but never break her. And that's a balance that you have to have as a coach. And she's talking about her play on the court too, because a person like Caitlin, you've noticed, she takes risks. That's one of the reasons why there are some turnovers that people are complaining about. Because if you always play it safe, you're probably going to have less turnovers, but you're also probably going to have less reward. And so you want to rein her in, you want to refine her, to use her terminology, but you don't want to break her, because it's that spirit, it's that go, it's that fire that makes that special player that special player. And she's also talking about dealing with other people, because when you are so far ahead, like she said, she's got the French down and the others are just learning to say we, and that can be extremely frustrating. So you kind of want to, again, tame her, but you don't want to break her. And that's so key, because the reason we now get to see the Caitlin Clark we see, the phenom, the face of the WNBA, is because Iowa said, no, we're not going to break her. We got to tame her a little bit, but not too much. One of the things I've always said about whether it's players or whether it's about people, because I believe in passion and I believe in fire. Sometimes it can be over the top. So even like the player I talked to you that I coached, I'd rather have to calm you down a little bit, tame you, if you will, than to have to pump you up all the time. I really would. If I got my choice, I'm going to take somebody who's fired up, and maybe I got to pull you back a little bit. But I don't want to break that spirit, because that spirit is what makes you who you are, and it makes the rest of us better. But what happens when that spirit, that fire, because you're so far ahead, causes you at times to maybe hurt other people, even though you don't mean to, you're just competing? Well, Iowa had to deal with that too. Now check out this video, because in this video, Jan Jensen explains to us how they approached that.
Then you build that trust. So we build a lot into our teams, and I try to talk a lot about very open confrontation that comes at a place of wanting to get better and get the best out of each other, not confrontation that, you're terrible,
sure,
you stink, or whatever. So we had a lot of those types of conversations, and we would show Caitlin some film individually of her mannerisms, because she was acting in a way that didn't just support what she was thinking, because her actions could make you feel small.
Sure.
And so when she started to come at it and understand that we all have to give, we all have to change, then it really began to happen. Because she just, when she throws her arms up, it's just like, you know, catch the effing ball. And so, well, I mean, just catch the ball. I mean, that's, or they're
right.
like, oh my gosh,
you know it's coming. You know it's coming.
Yeah, you know, she throws it too hard and she's mad, she doesn't like me. And so you got these reactions. So I'm like, Caitlin, if you want to win, you're going to have to change this, and you're going to have to get them to understand, because it's not golf. You still need the other four.
Right.
And so then when she started to kind of be able to shift, and then the others began to understand, and then when they began to see. Because then when she started to shoot from 40 and it was going in, and she began to throw passes, you know, that were unbelievable, and no one was working harder than her, then it started to go a lot smoother. And that's where the story really began. And that's when our team started to sail.
And it sounds like you did that through some group communications, but also some individual one-on-one. And again, it sounds like you looked at tape, you know, better look at the tape. I mean, I'm telling you what's going on, but let's just look at it and see it.
You watch it for strategies, but you can also use tape to teach personality and you know, how, or the traits or the actions. And sometimes you just have to see it, because you don't really necessarily recall that type of negative body, you know, language, or the shrug of the shoulders. Or I think coaches, we can utilize it too. You know, like you watch on the sideline and you don't like a call and you're up and you're, you know, negative and you slam, and you remember doing that and you think, but yeah, I shouldn't have done that. Right. You go to sleep and think, man, I didn't help, you know, but then you kind of are mad that the kids didn't respond. And then when you see it on tape and you look a fool, man, that makes you like, okay, well, no wonder they didn't respond. I was pretty hot. I lost my mind. But when you see yourself doing something that you didn't really believe that you did, tape don't lie, right?
Yeah. Right.
And so I think that can be used really, if you're in a job where film can be used, man, it can be a really great motivator and teacher.
So
What you saw right there is an example of coaching. And then she's talking about herself as well as Lisa Bluder, both of them, the whole coaching staff. It's a coaching mentality that's not just X's and O's. You know what? You can find X's and O's anywhere. What you often can't find are people who are willing to build into other people, who see beyond the basketball court. Notice what she said. Some of the actions made other people feel small. So what did they do? They devised a way so that it wasn't just them preaching at Caitlin. You got to stop that. You can't do that. You can't do that. Let's take a look at the tape. Because what she say? Tape don't lie. And there's nothing like seeing yourself behave in a certain way, whether it's good, and there was a lot of good with Caitlin, or whether it was something that needed to be refined, needed to be tweaked. Tape don't lie. And so I just love it, because that's what coaching is. X's and O's, man, you can go to Y, you can go to the Y, you can go to the Boys and Girls Club. You can find somebody who can say, okay, this is your motion offense. This is how you play a 1-3-1 against a 2-3. This is how you can come up with stuff. But you're helping these young women become mature young women, and then maturer older women. So I love that. Tape don't lie. And I also love that she's willing to share with us some of the challenges of Caitlin Clark. Does Caitlin still sometimes show, she's still very demonstrative? Yeah. But remember, some of that. Remember, tame, but never break. She won't lose the fire, but she'll do less of that. And we got a chance to look at some of the tools that Iowa used to make us be able to see the player we're seeing today. What do you think about that tactic? What do you think about the mindset, tamer but never breaker? What do you think about using tape to show a person how they're acting? What do you think? Leave it in the comments. Don't forget to hit the like button. Don't forget to share with other people. Listen, I need the views to stay up because we're still bringing content and it's good. Check it out And don't be selfish. Share with someone else. Subscribe to the channel if you have not done so yet. I'll catch you next time, God willing. God bless you abundantly.